What up, y'all? It's T-Tur, and today we're gonna be talking about the conspiracy of Lumiose City in Pokemon Legends EA. This is a really interesting idea, and it starts from one of y'all. I'm gonna show it to you, and then I'm gonna explain my thoughts on this. Hey T-Tar, here's a joke theory that I don't think will be anything related to Pokemon Legends EA, but the Lumiose City map reminded me of something from Fullmetal Alchemist. And they attached a photo of the big city in Fullmetal Alchemist, and this just gets your mind flowing, right? So, okay, let's start from the beginning. So you see in the last video we talked about how Pokemon like Serperior, their inspiration came from another manga, right? Not something that existed in real life, just whatever gave them inspiration and they wanted to reference because they thought it was a cool idea. So they based Serperior off the Rose of Versailles, just like that. So in the same way, if Game Freak and Pokemon were a fan of stuff that happened in the show, because the show is very popular, but it's also their vision for stuff that is in a sense real in real life. So it's like this, right? Back in the day, when they read these scriptures of lost history from like thousands of years ago, they read stuff like people being able to turn certain elements into another. We know our stars can do this, right? But can we do this? So like the big thing everyone in older days was trying to do was alchemy, like turning anything into gold. And then whoever could in a lab figure out how to change an element into another, which is again theoretically possible because our universe does it, whoever can figure it out can make infinite gold. So this was the rush back in the day that everyone was trying to figure out, and they tried all kinds of weird experiments. So what this show is like a world where that was discovered, and it's more philosophical, but pretty much there's something called a transmutation circle that's uncovered in the show that you can use to perform alchemy. So you can mess with stuff, you can mess with the nature of the world, living beings, and you can also turn elements into another. That's what the show's based off. So it's something interesting, right? And because the origin to the show is something in real life, it's not impossible that Game Freak could want to base something in this game off this show. And so that's when we get to the idea. So pretty much this is a transmutation circle. It's not something that exists in real life, it's the show's way of explaining how alchemy is done. So for example, here's where they draw the transmutation circle and they put all the necessary ingredients that are in a human body. So theoretically, they could transform this into a human. And very simplified, taking all the extra symbols out of the way, this is how they show the transmutation circle. So pretty much, there are these hub spots that are important, and it's like a ritual. By laying something out like this, you can perform alchemy. And so this one, of course, it's a small circle the size of like a basement, but this one is like a whole city wide. It can work as long as you can draw the circle. That's the key. And so now we take a look at Lumiose City in the modern day. That is exactly what Lumiose looks like. And for some reason, they made the main part of this game, the Jubilife Village, this. The outer circle is divided into the North Boulevard and the South Boulevard. Then there's these 5 plazas, Magenta, Rouge, Jaune, Vert, Bleu, and the Central Plaza. In the weirdest way, this makes a transmutation circle. And I don't know if Game Freak intended it, but they might have looked back at their notes and realized, hey yo, let's do something with this. And here's the weirdest bit, right? As far-fetched as it is to say, right, yeah, a transmutation circle, look at what they do in the trailer. So they start the trailer in kind of that in-between of something past and on paper and something futuristic in this wire mesh, right? What image do they leave us with? This is our final image that they show us before ending the trailer. And it even fades to hard paper blueprints. Someone drew up these schematics and tried to make the city like this. Now on the surface, this is what happened, right? They're redeveloping Lumiose City to make it more livable. Napoleon did this, right? But what if Game Freak wants to add a second layer onto this? What if these 5 plazas and all didn't exist, and underneath the idea of redeveloping Lumiose City, and in fact the real intention is something along the lines of making it a giant transmutation circle? And I'm gonna keep going on with this idea. So check it out, right? If you look in the trailer, they draw in Pikachu and then show Pikachu running around the city in first person's point of view. So when you see the city on this scale, it looks like a perfectly normal city. because that's what it's supposed to look like to everyone in Lumiose. That's the perspective they're showing through Pikachu, and so everyone is living their lives, Pokemon are just hanging out, and no one suspects a thing. That is the image I'm getting from this. It'd be really cool if the evil figure in this game was this Napoleon-like figure who was ruling Kalos, and he didn't just look at Lumiose and say, hey, I want to redevelop it to fix all the problems in the city and make it stronger. He purely wanted to redevelop it to create this giant transmutation circle and have everyone living in it, and so he makes the plazas exactly like that. Hub spots to make a perfect transmutation circle. So you may say, okay, how do we connect alchemy to what we think about Kalos and Pokemon Legends here? It's going to be something like this. You see, what they're trying to do in Lumiose is take everyone's life force to power something and get this giant mass of life force. And it goes like this, right? You see, the ultimate weapon, the way we see it fired in the modern games when Lysander fires it is he takes it from Xerneas and Yveltal, the power. So he has Xerneas in his lab, fills it with life energy, and that's what he tries to fire at the end. Death energy for Yveltal. But that's the second way the ultimate weapon functions. You gotta look at the earlier cutscene to really tell. But what really happened when AZ fired the ultimate weapon is, we don't know if Xerneas and Yveltal were involved, but another thing he did is he used random Pokemon's life force. I imagine in some way he had Xerneas' life force to revive Floette, but when he launched it filled with rage at the battlefield, he powered it by sucking the life force of a bunch of the surrounding Pokemon. No Yveltal was involved. And this is why if you go to Geosench Town, I think, and you look at those stones, what those stones really are the graves of all the life force, well, victims of the ultimate weapon back then. They were all the ones that were killed because AZ wanted to fire that weapon like that. And so here's the thing, we don't know how AZ managed to take everyone's life force. Is it a secondary function of the ultimate weapon? Or is there something linked to the invention of the ultimate weapon that was known back then, like making some kind of circle that you can then take everyone's life force and power the ultimate weapon? So maybe what's going on here is this 200-year-old king in Kalos, he uncovers the ultimate weapon, which is why it's on the logo. And he learns how to power it, and he knows Xerneas and Yveltal are missing. You know, no one knows where it is. They're sleeping somewhere. So his other way to power it is through the circle, to steal life force from other beings. And so this is why he looks at Lumiose City and is like, you know what? We're gonna redevelop it. So you'll be redeveloping this game throughout the whole game. As you return for more and more missions, it grows. And the climax of the game is him trying to take everyone's life force to fire the weapon. Or you can connect this to the other theory I was saying, where the ultimate weapon is a Pokemon, and if you gave it enough life force back, it would revert to some ancient creature. But that's the first layer to this, and it could work because the ultimate weapon's all the way in Geosenj, right? So this could explain why in Lumiose City we have this transmutation circle. He's just using it to get all the life force because that's the big hub spot of Kalos. It's the place with the most people. It's not just a random location in Kalos, right? They wouldn't make this in Geosenj because there's only like 20 people there, or if you wanted to expand it, maybe like a couple hundred people. Lumiose would have thousands, expand that to hundreds of thousands. By expand, I mean the Pokemon world is condensed for some reason. So that's the second layer to this idea. And the third layer comes in something called the Philosopher Stone, right? So the Philosopher Stone is like the mythical item of all this alchemy stuff. Pretty much, it could do a couple things. It can turn stuff into gold. Using it, you can give yourself eternal life because you can mess with the nature of things. And also, you can cure any disease with it because, again, you can mess with the nature of things. And this isn't in a supernatural way. It's because it should technically give you the key to being able to play God. There is a figure in the 14th century who is often associated with the Philosopher's Stone. I think he said he found it. If I understand my crap right, he found this book, but this was a long time ago, right? 14th century. He found this book called The Book of Abraham the Jew. Something like that, right? And he read this book and he claims he uncovered how to make the Philosopher's Stone. He pretty much uncovered the greatest secret of alchemy, but he died. So no one knows, was he telling the truth or not? That was in the 14th century, right? He was French. The man was French. So the idea would be something like this Kalosian king got this book. And he learned the secrets from this man to making this alchemist circle that in-game would say was found by someone a couple hundred years ago in Kalos. and it'd be referencing Nicholas Flamel, and he would be basing his whole recreation of Lumiose City off the stuff here, saying that if you can make this transmutation circle, you can power the ultimate weapon and have all the power. They could link the ultimate weapon to this groundbreaking stuff, right? Mastery over life and death, you compare that very closely with the stuff Alchemy would offer you in the Philosopher's Stone. And so there's more to this, right? Because when this man, Nicholas, died in the 14th and 15th century, people didn't care too much. But then in like the 1800s to the 2000s, the legend of this man who found out how to make the Philosopher's Stone, the stock skyrocketed, and cults and all these craps were forming to try and uncover what he did. So he became a legend after, and specifically in the 17th to the 19th century, which is exactly when we think this Legends game would happen. So you would be playing this game and have another myth that's in the past. The same way when we started playing Legends Arceus, there was a different myth in the past, the Celestica people and all, which is exactly how Game Freak would want to do it. And what's also cool is about this book being called Book of Abraham the Jew, there's a lot of other interesting stuff, like AZ being 9 foot and wandering. They say he's based off something called a wandering Jew. He's essentially this man who was mad mean to Jesus, right? A couple thousand years ago. So Jesus made him immortal to keep walking until he come back. So that's why AZ wandering for a couple thousand years, right? So we have AZ 3,000 years ago, wandering Jew who might have had the original knowledge of the ultimate weapon, as far as we can tell. Then we have this man with this Book of Abraham the Jew, who could have, through the book, had knowledge of the ultimate weapon as well. It paints the picture perfectly. And so, the second coming, you know, Jesus told AZ, man, you better wait for me to come back. The second coming. So AZ launches the ultimate weapon 3,000 years ago and gives himself immortality, right? He cursed himself to living through that ultimate weapon. What if we plug in the ultimate weapon to Jesus's role in the Wandering Jew story? So the ultimate weapon is the one who AZ's cursed to wander until its second coming comes. And so this game would be the earliest revival of the ultimate weapon many thousand years later since it first was launched. And not in the way we witness it in modern games where it's just a flower. I'm linking it to the idea that it is a Pokemon. This time when the Kalos King revives it, he's gonna revive the original creature that the ultimate weapon will form into. It'd be interesting if the actual true mythology that's gonna be behind Pokemon X and Y story actually does stem from AZ being that wandering Jew figure. It's crazy. Anyhow, make sure to shank that like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is there an evil Kalos King 200 years ago? And is stuff gonna happen the way I said in this video? I have a lot more to talk about, so I'll see you on the next one. Take care.